So I'm sure you know, as a living, breathing human being, perhaps even with emotions and a heart, that regardless of who you are, where you are, regardless of your gender, age, or orientation, the correct answer to "does this outfit look okay on me" is
Looks fine.
yeah, there you go. It's okay, perhaps, might be yes. That question, of course, brings many challenges with it. Like, too much honesty, of course, can cause, well, a little much pain to whomever's asking. Not enough honesty and you let your spouse go out with her shirt totally untucked and shoes not matching, perhaps a little embarrassment might come into play. Opportunities for new wounds that didn't previously exist 2 seconds ago now exist. The death of a family member, by the way, also opens the opportunity for new wounds, or old wounds, to open up. As you recall things that you may have said or they said to you, and you wonder, should I report back and say everything that this person was and describe truly how they were to others with me? How do we go about describing and discussing things? I want to think about what happens at the very end of Parsha Vayechi in the book of Genesis, this week's Torah portion, after Jacob dies. If you were with us in Kiddush Club, you got to read and hear about Jacob's blessing of all of his children. And following Jacob's death, we learned that his sons may have been not truly resolved, might be the best word, with all of their emotions around both how they treated each other and how they were treated by Jacob when Jacob was still alive. They become worried. In fact, we see that most of Jacob's sons were worried about what Joseph, their brother, would do. Worried that, in fact, he was still angry with them for how they had mistreated him. And so they sent a message to Joseph, and it said, "Before his death, your father left this instruction. So shall you say to Joseph, 'Forgive, I urge you, the offense and guilt of your brothers who treated you so harshly. Therefore, please forgive the offense of the servants of the God of your father.'" So according to this message that his brothers sent to Joseph in Egypt, before Jacob died, they said to Joseph, "Forgive your brothers." But did Jacob really say this? When we look through the instructions in the Parsha, when Jacob was blessing all of his children, that's not at all what he said. Yet nowhere in the narrative of the preparation of Jacob's death is there anything at all related to this particular request. And it seems we have yet another moment where his brothers were, shall we say, less than transparent, perhaps maybe even stretched the truth a little bit because they were concerned with their own emotion. So when is it okay to lie? When is it okay to stretch the truth? Well, the Talmud offers us two guiding principles. When it's emet shel chesed, the truth of compassion, and secondly, peace in the home, shalom bayit. So let's look at what those principles are in their application. After all, we could say that emet shel chesed, the truth of compassion, can be most quaintly understood as white lies. We see in one of the great debates between Hillel and Shammai that a question was raised of, what do you say about a less than stunning bride? Do you describe her as who she looks like? Or do you offer kind words regarding the bride's appearance? Thoughts? Anybody? This is, after all, an opportunity. What would you do? Curious?
Brides are beautiful.
All brides are beautiful, says Simon. Anyone in agreement? Yes. You guys would be in the house of Hillel. For the house of Hillel was kinder and diplomatic and said that every bride is beautiful on their wedding day. Thank you, Rabbi Hillel.
You've never looked more beautiful.
You would also be like Hillel. So you can imagine, therefore, what Shammai might have said. Shammai holds tight to the principle of truth-telling. It instructs his disciples to call it how they see it. Maybe not the best approach to a bride on her wedding day.
Certainly not everyone to be a photographer.
That's not how you want the photographer to be, absolutely.
And they're done that.
What about Shalom Bayit? If we look in Yevamot 65, in fact, it's this actual story that is cited itself. When Joseph's brothers lied about Jacob's final blessing, Rashi commented that they altered the facts for the sake of peace, for Jacob had given them no such command. The Talmud actually says, it was taught in the school of Rabbi Ishmael, great is peace, as even the Holy One, blessed be he, departed from truth. And so we hear, here that peace was necessary, at least for the sake of the house of Jacob on his death. In a later story, my eyes jumped, we read of Abraham and Sarah, when we hear that God says of Sarah, you will have a child at your old age. And Sarah initially takes a jab, and my Lord is old, meaning her husband is too old to make children. And you can guess what that could mean for poor Abraham and how it's read from the simplest of ways that Sarah may have been describing her older husband. In the end, it was God who altered Sarah's words. God who altered Sarah's words in the Midrash. When God told Abraham that Sarah said, I am old, God was the one who adjusts the words in order to spare Abraham hurt feelings that might lead to Abraham and Sarah to quarrel. In other words, God was the one in this case who let go of truth in favor of kindness when he reported back to Abraham. So there are moments, in fact, when we learn it might be a good idea to not share with somebody your first response, but allow it to be softened for the sake of everybody in the household. After all, perhaps Joseph's brothers were concerned, and that's why they said their lie. Maybe there was a moment of true fear and trepidation of what Joseph may do. It is the strangest of things, Claire Messud wrote in the book The Woman Upstairs, about human beings. To know so much, to communicate so much, and yet always to fall so drastically short of clarity, to be in the end so isolate and inadequate. Even when people try to say things, they say them poorly or obliquely, or they outright lie. Sometimes because they're lying to you, but as often because they're lying to themselves. When we contemplate lying in the eyes of Emet Shel Chesed, or Shalom Bayit, of truth and compassion and peace in the home, we also have to take into account that human beings are, after all, human beings. Sometimes we lie with intention, and sometimes we do so simply because, well, we're after our own good. I'll share one last story about lying and truthfulness. Rabbi Shimon taught that when the Blessed One, Holy Be God, decided to create the first human being, the ministering angels were divided. Some said they shouldn't be created, some said they should. Loving kindness and justice argued in favor of creation because they believed that loving kindness and justice would be the deeds of human beings at all times. But truth and peace disagreed. Peace argued human beings would be made up of conflict. Don't look closely in the House of Representatives. Truth argued that humans would be entirely made up of lies. In response, God flung truth to the earth, whereupon all the angels gathered around and said, but Master of all the worlds, is it not truth, your own seal? Raise truth back up from the earth. And so we see in this parsha, in this conversation, in this midrash, what is the deal? Truth is flung down, lies are flung up. Nope. Truth is brought down into earth, but it can't just live there. Truth springs up back from the earth, we read in the Psalms. We know, of course, that it's better to be truthful than to lie, and yet there are moments when, well, for the sake of everybody's hearts and compassion around us, a little emet shel chesed, a little white lie, is just fine too. We know that the kavanah, the intention, is more important sometimes than the words when we're striving for a peaceful home. And so softening that jab may be just the most important thing. While I'm not arguing that we need to learn necessarily in what Joseph's brothers did after Jacob died, what I am ultimately saying and believing is that Joseph's brothers had their own fears and their own reasons for saying what they said. And that maybe if they felt a little bit more secure when Joseph was so powerful, they wouldn't have felt the need to tell a lie so that they would feel more, so that they could all get along. May it be our ability to see each other as human beings, faults and all, as we come together, hopefully, for a more peaceful moment of togetherness. Shabbat Shalom.